Thanks for joining us for this ISE 2023 panel discussion. Today we're going to be looking at how big an opportunity there is for XR studios in corporate installs. So, Jeremy, you're next to me. First question to you, really. Is there an opportunity there for, I'm guessing it's going to be medium and kind of large corporates, ideally?
100%, yeah. I think there's a big focus on keeping internal communications engaging. People need to find out new ways of doing that, not just sending out email memos and things. There's been a real kind of build and production areas, turning rooms into production, and now XR is becoming more affordable. It's easier to maintain, and there's packages available to people. Puts us consultants in a place where we really need to kind of show people that to get the worth out of it. And it shows that end users with the right training can run these spaces themselves as well from time to time. So yeah, absolutely, I do think so. I think the main thing is getting people to actually realise what the outcome is, not the technology and what you want to do with it, but what you want to achieve with that technology.
Andy, same question to you really. Are you seeing an opportunity maybe in a few years' time for corporates to really take XR studios on board?
I think we're seeing the opportunity now, certainly corporate and education. I think exactly what you were just saying, new ways to create dynamic content, engage remote audiences. So many corporates and educational institutions are becoming media companies, engaging with these huge remote audiences, colleagues around the world, the sustainability angle, meaning people don't want to travel as much. So XR allows you to really engage those audiences and produce this engaging content. And being able to teleport people into the space, so it's not just a 16:9 video window you're talking to, it's a full body person, and all those sorts of things is just, it's happening now, and it's just going to grow in the future.
David, you're nodding at the opportunity there. I guess you agree.
Full agreement, yes. Very aptly put by these two gentlemen. But yeah, we even on the larger scale stages, we're seeing corporate keynotes and town halls and things like that happen already because it's exciting and sexy, right? We have embargoes. The CEO comes in, starts taking photos straight away, and it's on LinkedIn. But I think what you touched on is really important, though. It's got to be content first. It can't just be technology driven. It's got to show to people, how much better is this going to be because of the tools we're enabling you with. So, yeah.
With regards to the content, are we talking about like training videos, or is this like messages to internal staff or even external messages?
I think that's ultimately up to them, right? We got to provide them with a toolkit. This is a tool at the end of the day to help them communicate with their staff in the most effective way. And it could be a variety of things, from a kind of simple green screen, broadcast style, traditional broadcast, you want to call it that, all the way up to something much more exciting in a three-dimensional world with teleporting people in from different branches across the world. I think there's loads of opportunities.
Andy, when they come to you, have they just heard the term, or do they know about the technology, or is it something that you have to suggest to them?
That's quite a good point. I think it's a mixed bag. I think sometimes it's educating the client when you've got a project coming in to tell them what's possible. Yeah. They may have looked at a green screen solution, they may have got some awareness of how video production is done, and you might be educating them. But more and more we're finding people have heard virtual production terms, XR terms. They're sometimes quite confused by what they are. And you have to take them on the journey. You have to help them understand the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? It's a big buzzword at the moment. There's a lot out there. There's good examples, there's bad examples, and ultimately these clients need this to work every day, repeatably, 100%. They need to be able to walk in 5 minutes for a presentation, press go, and it work. And making sure that they understand all of the points in that journey is a challenge. So,
Jeremy, are you having to sort of guide them through the process, as it were?
Absolutely, and again, it's a user adoption thing foremost. Some people want to be able to just go, okay, these are the tools that we can have, and we want to depend on people that are skilled and be able to put these in. Some people come in and say, can I invest into this technology? Can you give me some suggestions of what we can do with it? And can you teach us? And we'll try and run with that and kind of reach out with help on different parts of how to improve those services as well. Like I said, I think ultimately it can be now live, exciting. It can be something like a training piece and just someone standing up in front of a piece of information. It's what the technology again is, just the tool to do it, really.
Sure. In terms of the spaces that these could potentially be installed in, are we talking about a kind of medium-sized meeting room, a large meeting room? Do you need a lot of space necessarily?
We have been so especially we're outside of XR. We've been running with different sort of sizes of production, which is then green screens to come in, and then with LED and things like that. The more technology goes in, more space is required, more variety is needed, more space is required. If they know that they only have a medium meeting room available and they're just going to be able to do green screen for a couple of people or a little podcast suite with some virtual environments or something like that, you might be able to utilize like quite a small space for that. But yeah, I think it's a good point. Like the more technology and variety that's needed with a space, then yeah, you are going to need something. A large meeting room generally doesn't have the ceiling height required for some of that sort of technology. So ceiling height, footfall coming past your doors, noise, ambient lighting, things like that are the big considerations more than actual room size, I would say.
Andy, are you requested, if you get a request in for something like that, an XR studio, would you have a minimum requirement for the size of the room, or would you kind of work with what you've got and then you maybe have to tailor the equipment around that?
Yeah, so I mean, we built out a product range. So our Smart Stage range is a set of predefined products that have evolved over the 5 years that we've been installing these, right? So there's a certain prerequisite or requirement for the room size for some of those, but there's also ways of engineering around some of those. I'd say a massive advantage of XR is being able to utilize those small spaces and add these set extensions to make the space feel bigger. So what we're finding is actually where the client previously had limited options, we're able to squeeze XR technology into the smaller spaces, which is getting them going with the technology, and then they're coming back saying, we're loving this, can we have something bigger in a different room, and can we use a bigger product in that? So certainly in the corporate and education spaces, we've installed them in pretty tiny offices and classrooms. Wow. And then as they've adopted the technology and got used to it, they've started putting them in lecture theatres or much bigger meeting spaces.
David, do you think size is potentially a block to adoption here, or do you think you can kind of adapt to?
I think there's a minimum viable size, especially for an XR stage, but yeah, we're lucky to build relatively large stations most of the time. But yeah, we'll always work with the client, get the floor plan and find out, what can be fit. But I think you're right, it's about creating stepping stones for the technology as well. Like, it's not cheap still, even though, it's getting more democratized. So having like accessible stepping stones is going to be beneficial to everyone.
Yeah. Final question to you all. I thought this might be an interesting one, because obviously our core leadership is kind of system integrators and stuff. I just wondered who you thought would be best to manage these spaces going forward in a corporate enterprise. Would it be the IT team, or would it be a specialist AV team, or would it be a specialist production team? Because this is kind of content production we're talking about here. Jeremy, question to you, who would you ideally like to manage those spaces going forward?
I've seen multiple organisations set up an internal like a virtual event production team that usually does sit somewhere underneath facilities or IT. Obviously that's a logistical thing, but I think the skill set is not just about running technology, it's about the way that they work and the way they work with people, and they need to be creative and whatever. So yeah, I'm not saying that's the answer, but I have seen quite a few examples now of a internal production team being set up within an organisation.
And who do you think would be best to control that room? Because it's specialist skills we're talking about here, isn't it?
It can, yeah, it is. And I think there's a different question maybe who is at the moment and who should be. Certainly from the installations that are out there from our side at the moment, generally looked after by the AV/IT team or the marketing team. Quite often it's an asset that's been purchased that's basically a glorified video conference.
Could you do that as part of a service contract potentially?
Yeah, so we tend to build systems that are easy enough to operate by the marketing team, right? So it's template driven, it's a graphical touchscreen, it's things that they don't need to know anything else about the system, in which case the marketing team can do it, and then you've got an AV/IT team who are sitting behind them should they want small changes or lights tweaked or anything, and then we back that up with a wraparound service. So if you want to go to the moon for your presentation next week, someone needs to build the moon, right? And not many of these clients have teams of Unreal or Unity developers that are able to build this content for them. So, that we at the moment we have to offer that as a wraparound service, and that can be part of the service contract.
Yeah. David, where do you see the management best sitting of these?
I think it depends on what part of the production you're looking at, right? There should be specialists, of course. There's two things here. There's the technology itself, and then back to the point earlier with the content. If they want to make great content, they should probably have things like producers, researchers. All this thing that goes along with like creating traditional content, I think is really important. I think the content generation side is going to rapidly change in the next year to 5 years. However quickly AI becomes a thing. We've seen ChatGPT blow up insanely. Hopefully within, who knows, maybe even this year, you can generate 3D models now using text. They're not very high fidelity, but maybe by the end of the year, you can be in Unreal Engine or a wrapper around it and type in, I want to be on the moon in a crater, and there will be.
Fantastic. Well, that's a nice positive to end on. Jeremy, Andy, David, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for joining us for this video. There's plenty more on the website. Thank you. Bye-bye.